Lay out what liquid democracy is, because I think that's something like I would really like to just make sure I understand every nook and cranny of it before we go into the strategy.
Totally.
Yeah.
So again, just looking at our previous options, a lot of people right now think of democracy as these two extremes, either this direct democracy system where everyone's voting on a ballot measure or referendum or initiative, everyone's one person, one vote, or the other extreme of this representative model, what I call electoral democracy model, where we pick a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people to go represent everybody. So for the US, we have 535 people out of 300 million, which is 0.00001%. Mm-hmm. And people see this as two extremes. And sometimes the debate comes along the lines of like, is it better to have rule by the people or rule by the elites? Which is, I would describe as a false dichotomy. But liquid democracy is trying to be this hybrid model where we take the best of both options. And so first and foremost, in a liquid democracy model, every last person can vote directly on policy if they want. Any bill that is currently being debated in your Congress or on your city legislature and your state legislature, you as an individual could cast a vote for or against on it because you're one person, one person, one vote. With that said, it would be a huge loss to lose out on the representation, and it would be moving back to this model that made sense when, 2,000 years ago when everyone could be in the same room. But we still want to keep the representation. And so we can do something even better than what we have right now for representation. Rather than saying only one person gets elected and speaks on behalf of all million people in the district or whatever it is, we say you as an individual can pick who you want your representative to be. Just like how on Instagram you subscribe to or you follow people that you want to fill your feed, or on Twitter you follow people that you want to fill your feed. In a liquid democracy, you delegate to people who you want to represent you.
Okay.
And what that means is if you don't vote directly, your vote will automatically be the same as their vote. It's as if they get an extra vote.
Yeah.
They can cast an extra vote on your behalf.
Yeah. Two questions there. One, and this is, I just want to quickly sense where you stand on this. So ideally for you, you would say everyone should have a equal say in what's happening in the in society, right? Like they should be able to name what society is moving towards.
Yeah, I believe in the fundamental principle, in the American Declaration of Independence, we say all men are created equal. We all start out as one. But with the caveat that there are leaders in our community that we trust much more than others. And so we absolutely do want to have certain people be able to lead us.
Yeah.
And that's where our representative model, the liquid democracy representative model, is really nice, because it says that this is who I trust to lead us, but I can always speak for myself when I want.
No.
To the extent that we want to have every single last person weigh in on an issue, it becomes your individual choice to say either I want to weigh on this, or I want my Uncle Jim to be able to weigh on it, or I want Barack Obama to be able to represent my views, or whoever, Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Gates, whoever you want it to be.
Yeah. So, then are you a general advocate for referendums then?
Not exactly. I mean, again, I think of it as these are two extremes. The referendum it has advantages and it has times when it is great, but it also has major disadvantages. The most significant of is that it takes time to really understand all these issues. We're all very busy people, and these are complicated issues and policies and implications and all this. And so there's this idea that's worth noting, it's referred to as the rule, or the low information voter, the phenomenon of the low information voter. And it's not just a slur. It's not just saying stupid people or something like that, but it's actually looking at the behavioral economics of, is it in your interest to take the time to be informed on the issues? There's a cost, there's a benefit to voting correctly, and there's a cost to investigating what the correct vote would be. And the cost stays the exact same no matter how many people are voting, but your benefit is 1 over the number of people voting. You're one of 50 people, or you're one of 1 million people, or you're one of 300 million people. And so your individual vote being cast the correct way, whatever that means, is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And so the effect of this is that the cost is staying constant, whereas the benefit is getting smaller. And so we would expect naturally the decisions that a direct democracy is making as it gets larger and larger to be less and less informed.
Yeah, because on an individual level, I almost recognize the futility or the insignificance of my contribution. So I'm kind of like, why even bother, right? Like just
exactly.
But so I completely see that. But then what I have, because what you're talking about now is almost like the ideal citizen who recognizes that they're less informed, and then they're like they seek out people who are like, hey, my body, like let's say, Joe Rogan knows more about MMA than me, so I'm going to say, Joe Rogan, you vote for whatever MMA policies there are out there, right? But in order for me to do that, I need to realize that I suck at MMA, right? And I need to be like, Joe Rogan is good. But do you, is that a fundamental belief that you have, that everyone's that honest when it comes to their shortcomings of?
No, of course not. I think a different way to frame it is that right now, whether we're talking, just keep in mind that when we pick the representative, when we pick who the representative is, we're taking a direct vote.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So we already have to have a direct vote of, do we want candidate A or candidate B to be the representative? Yeah. So we're not getting away from direct democracy with our current model necessarily. But the choice that you're presented as an individual voter is, do I want to cast a vote? I've done X amount of research, whether it's a ton of research on the candidates and the policies and the issues, or zero amount of research, whatever it is. I could cast a vote and I'll count as one person towards that decision, or I could stay home and not cast a vote. And so your only options are this 1 or 0. And what we're saying instead in this liquid democracy is, you can cast a vote directly if you want, or you could say, I really trust my coworker, Alex. I really trust my classmate, Katie. And I know that even if I don't cast a vote, my values will still be represented. Mm-hmm. This is the person who I think is honest, takes the time to look into these issues. And here's a significant thing that kind of trips people up. That person can also pass along both of your votes to somebody else. So like you're talking about with MMA, with Joe Rogan, let's say the issue, let's say we're voting on healthcare, because I doubt we're going to be voting on MMA, just to keep it.
Yeah.
Let's say the issue is health. It's a big, big debate in America.
And you give it to Dr. House.
Exactly. And Donald Trump, the president, had this great quote. He said, "Who could have guessed that healthcare was so complicated?" And that sort of speaks to what you're saying, is that when he was campaigning for president, he said over and over and over again, I'm going to give us a fantastic healthcare system that everyone's going to love, and it's going to be cheaper, and everyone's going to be fantastic about it. And he was doing what was the most effective thing to do on the campaign trail, conveying this confidence and that he knew what the right answer was. Then when it came time to actually legislate and craft policy, he had he admitted that, actually it turns out it is more complicated than I realized. This is a harder issue. Like you were asking, do people admit whether they know or not? And so the model that we're working towards is that, exactly like you said, you could say, I don't know necessarily that much about healthcare, but I have this, there's this person, Dr. House, let's say, TV care. It would have to be a real life person.
Of course.
But let's say, Dr. Oz.
Yeah.
I really
Because that's a real life.
Let's say it's your actual doctor.
Phil. He's a doctor.
Yeah, he's actually he's a childhood friend of mine, actually.
Oh, really? Your friend's
Yeah, I've been in his house. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And my brother and him and his son were on a baseball team together when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's a doctor,
And
right?
He's a psychologist.
Okay.
But that's a good point. No, so let's say he's the person that you trust most when it comes to healthcare. So then he would say, okay, on this, he knows lots and lots of doctors, and he's going to say, actually, this is the most trustworthy person on healthcare. And then that person's going to say, okay, sure, I might be trustworthy on generalized healthcare, but for this particular issue that we're debating, this narrow question of this one procedure or whatever it is, here's the real expert. Mm-hmm. And so in effect, we create this, sometimes we call it like a delegative chain, a chain of delegation, or a trust network sometimes, where each step along the way, ideally, it's getting smarter and smarter. This person knows a little bit more, and this person is even more knowledgeable about it, and this person. And so we end up, in effect, empowering people for different issues who are who we've organically determined to be the most trustworthy on that decision.
Okay.
That's sort of part of the idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry because I buy I'm really in with the idea, and it's just that the cynic in me always comes out when I hear ideas like this. So you're passing it on, right? What you say is when people get smarter and smarter, the cynic in me is right. I see more points of failure.
Yep.
Because I'm like, let's say Dr. Phil, through his TV shows and everything, I get convinced he's an expert. I give him a vote, right? There's a layer of information that's being created that I perceive as the truth, and that's why I give the vote to Dr. Phil. Now, Dr. Phil has 2 votes to cast, and then he has to perceive who's the expert in his circles. Again, facing layers of truth, right? And then my question to you is this a problem that you actually think can be solved in a system design, or do you think this is just something that it's a different problem that we're talking about here?
Well, I think what you're saying is that people can make the wrong decisions of who they trust. They can make mistakes. And that's, without a doubt, that's true. We're not changing human nature or anything like that.
Yeah.
I guess the foundation that we always try to come back to is look at the current system as it exists right now and look at what we're proposing, and we're just trying to make it strictly better than what we have right now.
Okay.
Right now, we can pick representatives who know absolutely nothing about the things that we elect them to. Yeah. And the incentives are really screwed up right now. People get into office because they're really good campaigners and they're really good at fundraising. Mm-hmm. And those are basically the 2 main requirements. And there's such a limited option. If wherever I live, I can pick among, 2 or maybe 3 or 4 people on a ballot who, truthfully, I don't really know all that well. And they're supposed to represent me on every single last issue. And once they are in office and once they've been picked, well, now, if it turns out we realize we made a mistake, we're kind of stuck with them for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And so this new model that we're saying, of course, without a doubt, we're going to make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. But at least we have the tools to do something about it. Mm-hmm. We have the option to replace our representatives in real time as we realize, oh, wait, that person actually isn't trustworthy. And we can also, the issue by issue delegation, we haven't actually launched that yet. There's a lot of hard, intricate problems with that we're still working out. But in the future, that will be a much more specialized and expert-driven representative model than what we have right now. This one-size-fits-all.
Okay. Oh, so that's another thing I don't think we spend that much time on. The fact that right now, when you cast a vote, then you have no say for the next 2 years or 4 years.
Exactly.
So from what I understand from the research I've done is that there's a much tighter feedback loop, right? So like if the guy you give the vote to is like, yo, Dr. Phil, you messed up. I thought you'd be doing something else. I can immediately revoke it, right? So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, I could actually give you a little demo if you want.
Okay.
So this was our prototype that we made for the first version over a year ago. This was for the city of San Francisco.
Okay.
This is a native app, so this isn't actually publicly available. What we have right now is a web app, but this kind of does a really good job of explaining the ideas that we're working with. But yeah, exactly like you're saying, we have this delegates page here in the menu.
Wait, can you hold that up to the camera so everyone? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, can you see that now?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
And so the idea is you have multiple people here that you can choose to represent you.
Yeah.
And you can add someone new, right from your phone book. Anyone in your contacts.
Okay.
And if you no longer trust them, so you have multiple choices. So if your first choice doesn't cast a vote, then check your second. If your second doesn't, then check your third. So you're not stuck with only a single person either.
Okay.
And if you no longer trust them, there's an edit button here. I'm not quite sure if I can do this in reverse. So you press the edit button. Now this is an edit mode.
Yeah.
And so you could immediately, reorder them, or you could immediately replace them just like that.
So when you talk about the reorder, it's more like, let's say Samantha gets first pick if it's to cast my vote, and if she doesn't do it, then Alex can get the vote, etc.
Exactly.
Okay. And
so that way you can have, personal friends or your father or someone who you're really close with, who you trust really strongly, but they might not always be active.
Okay.
They might not cast a vote. And so you still, I like to think of each of these representatives as another backup. They're backups for your views and your positions. And so you still might have a national figure after that who, you've never met them. You've never shook their hand or anything like that. So you can't trust them quite as much, but that they're probably going to have a vote on this issue.
Okay. And this is a demo that you just showed, and is it beta testing or is it just, okay.
Exactly. That was a prototype that we built for the city level.
Okay.
This was 18 months ago when we first started working on this. We were working for the city level. We've now shifted our focus to the national level. And also everything now is on the web, so you can access from any phone, from any computer.
Okay.
Whereas this was a native app that we built that we'd like to add native apps again, but just because of our limited resources right now, everything is web and mobile web so that we can reach more people.
Yeah. And these delegates, I don't know, so this is where we have the kind of separate vision from what you have right now. Can you already assign delegates based on different topics, or is that further down the pipeline?
Yeah, down the pipeline, it's so many people want it and so many people get really excited about it, and it really reframes this from, oh, I don't trust the mob, I don't trust direct democracy, which a lot of people have very well-intentioned reservations about, to this, oh, it's a much more expert-driven representation. This is the expert on foreign policy, and this is the expert on healthcare, and this is the expert on technology. Yeah. And so it will be a fantastic addition. There's some really tricky questions to be answered there about how do you decide for any given issue which category it falls into.
Yeah.
And who makes that decision, and what do you do if if an item falls into multiple categories? And it's not that there isn't a right answer. There are many possible solutions to this problem, but it's not immediately obvious exactly how to go about it. And so we're still experimenting with a few different approaches.
I imagine that has to be an elaborate framework which kind of ticks every kind of category and every kind of box. And I would imagine even that framework, I'm sure some guy somewhere is going to be like, this is not really meant to go into this framework, and it's meant to go into this framework,
Which could have a massive impact and really make people upset.
Yeah.